Hello, and welcome back to the Empower Hour with me, Molly C. Ennis. I'm so excited for this month as it is March, so it's Women's History Month. Side note, I hope you are all taking time to learn about and remember and honor women's impact throughout all of history in every area. In every area. Thank you for that side note. But as that is the theme of the month, I wanted to follow it. And I have a great opportunity and a great friendship with a woman who is an iconic history teacher. And we sit down today with Mrs. Caitlin Kurmin, formerly Medeiros. But we sit down with Mrs. Kurmin, the educator, and really learn about her experience, how she really decided secondary education, which is focusing on the high school age group, how that was what she wanted to focus on. And she found her way as a history teacher and really coming full circle with how she is as an educator and impacting her students and reflecting on the teachers in high school who really impacted her. And I think it's just a beautiful journey that we get to highlight. Our educators are some of the most important jobs that we have here. They help our young people develop their mindsets, their critical thinking skills, how to be respectful to others. It's a lot. And I have the utmost respect for all educators everywhere, so shout out to you. Thank you for all you do. But we're going to hear from a lovely educator herself, Mrs. Kurmin, the history teacher. And I really hope you enjoy. Let's get into it. Hello, everybody. And here we are joined for this March special guest, one of my dearest friends from very many ages ago, Caitlin, now Kurmin. You may have known her as Medeiros, but she's married. She's a whole new woman. She's constantly in a glowing up phase of life. But I am so excited to have you here, Caitlin.
Thank
Welcome.
you for having me.
Thank you for taking some time out of your very booked and busy life for little old me to touch base to chat about your time and your experience as not only a teacher, but a history teacher during Women's History Month. It was
Yes.
all coming together too well. It had to. It had to. So, Caitlin, I could rant and ramble about you forever, and I will, but I want you to introduce yourself. Tell the people, who are we talking to today?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Caitlin Kurman, but like Molly said, many of you probably remember me as Caitlin Medeiros, all the Bridgewater listeners out there. But I grew up in Marshfield, Massachusetts, little beach town, and then went to Bridgewater State where I got my bachelor's in secondary education and history to get that next step, being a history teacher. And then COVID hit while I was living with Molly, actually.
Very true.
And I actually transitioned a little bit and I moved up to Vermont, where I went to UVM for grad school. So I got my master's in special education up at UVM. And originally that plan was 2 years up in Vermont, and I was coming back to Massachusetts, and that was going to be that. And I fell in love with living in Vermont. I love my life up here, so I stayed. And so now I live in Waterbury, Vermont, and I teach at a high school in northern Vermont, and I teach social studies to ninth through 12th graders. I have all four grades this year for the first time, which is
Oh.
very interesting.
Mm.
But I absolutely love, 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 love my job. And I actually am also the student government advisor, which will definitely come up and makes a lot of sense for mine and Molly's relationship. So I work with students in a couple different capacities. I'm also heavily involved in different committees and things at my school that will probably come up. I am not somebody who can sit still ever. So I do like to be involved in my community and in what I'm doing and what I'm passionate about. So I'm sure a lot of that will come up today.
Oh, I'm very sure of it. To give more context to Caitlin and I's relationship, we met in high school because we were both very involved in student council and the Massachusetts Association of Student Councils, MASC. I just saw that they had their annual conference the other
Yes,
weekend.
I saw
Um,
pictures.
I know it makes me like, wow, 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 emotional because of how I think far we've come, but also seeing the organization still standing so strong, so consistent, and like just seeing the student leaders continuing to emerge, like that absolutely filled my heart. I know that was an
Yeah.
experience that meant so much to both of us.
Yes,
And so
definitely.
from that, we knew each other, we were friendly with each other, and then it was like, we're both going to, oh, we're going to Bridgewater State! What a small little world! And through there, I think our paths honestly just so organically crossed yet again as tour guides. And then it was sorority recruitment time. Caitlin was unsure of it. We convinced her.
Yes, we
A
did.
couple members of Delta Phi Epsilon were our tour guides as well, that were able to kind of really put the good bug in her ear of Greek life. She went out for formal. She ended up in DPhi, like literally worlds aligned. And I had joined the previous year, and so it was a really great opportunity to like welcome somebody I knew before
Yes.
and just see that kind of growth. And then we served on the leadership team together. I was president, she was vice president of recruitment. We lived together senior year. We
Yeah.
like it just continued to kind of snowball into the beautiful friendship that I think we maintain so well today.
Yes.
Um, Caitlin and I share unfortunate facts as well. Similarities. Both of our dads passed far too young, and that has always played into our relationship. And I think how strong of a bond that we do have because we can understand things that others definitely cannot, and just sharing that kind of love and energy means a lot to me. I know that for sure.
You
And
too, girl.
yeah, and I just how lucky are we to have found each other when we needed each other the most?
Yeah.
Oof. Okay, let me
Uh,
reel it
well,
in real quick.
when you're going through all of that, I'm like, wow, our lives have intersected so many times. And I
Yeah.
forget sometimes because I always talk about us in college and the great times we had there. And it's like, well, that story actually started in high school. And there are a few people who would be like, oh, yeah, aren't you and Molly friends from high school? And I said, yeah, but we didn't go to high school together. It was through
Yes.
another big passion of ours that definitely overlapped. And I like had a memory the other day thinking about doing this about the MASC summer camp, the student council summer
Hmm.
camp.
Shout
That
out.
was the best week of my life every year. And I remember your first year and how much energy you had brought to the camp and how great it was. So, just
Mm.
so good to think back on.
I'll always be punching the air. I never got a diamond. Never
Yeah.
got to hit that, but shout out Silver, shout out RB6,
Yeah.
shout out. But yeah, I think through leadership too, that was a big, I think just common area of interest, common passion for each of us.
Yeah, and I
And
truly think like the experiences that we share together, I think are actually some of the experiences that really have shaped me to be who I am today. Like the
I,
person I am,
yeah.
and like some of my friends will joke with me, like I have become the adult version of my high school self in a lot of ways, in a
Hmm.
really positive way that I'm proud of.
Yeah.
And a lot of those experiences we have shared that have built me to be the type of leader I want to be today, which is cool.
Woo! I'm gonna cry. No, but I could not agree more. I think when you have somebody who you can feel not, it's, I don't even think it's a relatability. It's just like understood without words. And having that kind of connection, it truly shapes you in many, many ways. It also shapes how you want to show up for other people because you know other people. It's a rarity to have such a strong bond that is so consistent and like no matter what happens, hi, we're still here. We're still
Yep.
connected. And even though you moved many states away, I'll never forget that because you went from our college apartment to
Yeah,
Vermont,
right
and
there.
I was one of the last living at the house. And I just sat in the driveway and watched Caitlin go off quite literally into the sunset. Like, it's
Yep.
very poetic. I was crying tears in my eyes, but and I knew it was the best for you because that meant you got to be with Brian and you both had to sacrifice so much through your college years and everything happens for a reason. It proved that he was truly your forever person and now you had your wedding last summer.
Yes, and you
Hi,
drove
how are
up
we
to
gonna
Vermont to
up
come.
and yes, and that was beautiful. And just like an unbelievable day of love and just celebration and we've come a long way.
We sure have.
And let's talk about that journey because you're a history teacher. And I think right now in in the state of the world, being a history teacher, revisiting history, teaching the importance of it is crucial.
Mhm.
And so before we dive too deep into that, I want to understand from you becoming an educator, becoming somebody who has to lead a classroom, who sometimes is the most consistent person in a child's life. Talk to me. How did you know that that was the path for you? What was it, a moment that really like stuck out of like I made an impact, or was it a collection of moments? Talk to us a little.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So I always knew that I wanted to be a teacher. So I was the kid who got home from school and played school. So I have three younger brothers who are so incredibly important to me, and we have always been very close. And I used to make them sit down and give them homework and grade their work and
Hmm.
try to teach them things. So that's always been in me. I think that comes from my mother. There is a running joke in education that it's hereditary. You'll notice there are lines of teachers in
Mm.
families, and that's definitely true for me. So my mom is an educator. She has been in education her entire career, more specifically in special education and more often in severe special education. So for me, I was always around education. I heard about it. I saw it. My mom used to bring me in with her to school sometimes to work in her classroom and to work with her students. It's very special because I still do that. I try the way our vacations overlap in Vermont. We have the whole week of Thanksgiving off, so I will often go down for Thanksgiving early and I will go to school with my mom still. So once a year, I go to school with my mom and get to meet her students and stuff. And that's something that's always been special to me. So that love for education and wanting to teach and loving school. School has always been something that I absolutely loved. I was not a kid who dreaded going to school. I even look back on middle school, and everyone always says, like, middle school was the worst. And I loved it. I loved it in the moment. Was I an awkward human being? Yeah, for sure, everybody is. But I loved it. I loved it. I loved high school, all of it. So it was kind of a path that's always been there for me. I
Mm.
don't really remember ever wanting to be anything else. Like, I've always
Mm.
kind of said I wanted to be a teacher. But I always thought I was going to be an elementary school teacher. I thought working with kids was beautiful, still do. Shout out to elementary school teachers because you have one of the most formative roles in a child's life, and that's so
Mm.
important. And I really thought I was going to be an elementary school teacher, actually, up until the day that I applied to college. So many people don't know this, but I had written on all of my college applications, elementary education. And then the day I hit submit, I changed it to secondary ed and history. And that was a last minute decision that
Yeah.
changed my life. But the way that decision was made was very
Mm.
formative to me. So as Molly said, we were heavily involved in student council. So I was someone in high school who did get involved very early. I had some upperclassmen take me under their wing, start to really explore student council. I went on field trips. I went to conferences. I listened to guest speakers. I saw Molly at all of these things. And it was something that I really found a passion in. And I was on that pathway anyways. And then going into my junior year, the summer between my sophomore and my junior year, my dad passed away very unexpectedly. Um, he passed away on a family vacation. And my mom, in the span of a few hours, became a single mom of four kids. And I being the oldest daughter, the oldest child. I thought my life and my future as I knew it was over. Not because of anything that was in anyone's fault by any means, but I thought I'm not gonna be able to go to college. I'm not gonna be able to afford it. I'm gonna have to help my mom with my brothers, and I'm gonna have to work to pay bills and these things that I had thought I wanted to do, I'm suddenly not going to be able to do. And I was fighting a level of acceptance from
Mm.
myself. My mom never said any of those things to me. It was never something that was pushed on to me. She is absolutely a superhero, and what she did to step up for me and my brothers. She actually was a paraeducator at the time, so she was not even on a full teacher salary, which, as we know, is not very much to begin
Mm.
with. So for her to be able to step up and still be the incredible, wonderful woman she was for me and my four brothers is amazing. But I tried to hide a lot of those fears from my mom. That first year was very rocky. Anyways, I remember my mom had some health scares herself, obviously due to stress. where I did have to step up and I saw myself as now this is my new role. Like I do have to step up when my brothers need me. The youngest of my brothers, the twins were 10 when my dad passed. So they were young. They were not able to take care of themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
there was that level of acceptance. But when I went to school, I was actually just on my own. My brothers weren't there, it was just me. And I had a couple really formative people in my life that changed that thinking for me. So one of those people who you do know is was my student council advisor, Miss Jada Vitez, the wonderful, wonderful, wonderful woman she is, still to this day, still the student council advisor at my high school.
That's
And
awesome.
she is the one of the most impactful people in my life. And I still am in touch with her to this day. Um, but she had known me my freshman and sophomore year through student council and had seen some really big leadership potential in me. And she continued to make sure that I continued on that pathway. So she made sure I was still at every student council event. I was still at every conference. And those things did cost money, and money was a big concern for me. So there were times that she would help me fill out forms. I even remember her helping me fill out the forms and get the forms to make sure I didn't have to pay for my SATs so that I could still take the SAT and not have the burden of the cost.
Mm-hmm.
There were lots of supports in place. I remember she would drive me home from different events if couldn't get a ride home, or it was going to be a major challenge for my mom to just be able to balance the four kids and where we were and different things like that. And Jada continued to push me to go find those leadership positions, to go push myself and learn and take my story and make it my story and not have it I be who I am. So Jada was somebody who was so impactful to me. She really inspired me to continue on that leadership journey, and really push myself there. And then the other person who was very pivotal to me was my AP US history teacher, Mr. Weisgerber. And I'm very fortunate because he actually just retired this past year. And I got to write him a letter saying to him, "You are a major factor in why I became a teacher." So when I get notices from my students that say, "You've had an impact on me," like I want you to know that your impact on me is now spreading to other students. And like, even though you're retiring, your impact as an educator will continue my whole career,
Mm-hmm.
which is really neat. And that teacher, what was very pivotal for him is he was his classroom was a classroom I could go cry in, and I could go talk
Mm-hmm.
about how hard life was and how it wasn't fair, and my concern about my mom and my concern about my brothers, and wanting to do everything I can, but also reminding me, like, well, what are you doing for you? And he was someone who would check in on me on college applications, and he would make sure that I was doing the things that I wanted to do. And when I said, well, I can't do that anymore because of my situation, he would fight me on it a little bit and say, well, why? Why not?
Mm-hmm.
What would your dad have wanted? What do you want for you? Why does that need to go away now? Um, he still pushed me academically. I never got a free pass. I was not allowed to just not do my homework. It was, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I totally get like something was going on at home. So you're going to meet with me at this time. We're going to get it done. It was a level of accountability and showing me like, yeah, this happened and life is really hard, but you know what? Like there are people to support you and you can still rise to the occasion. You can still do that. So those two people for me really absolutely changed my life. I was trying to accept that I was just going to have to stay home, maybe do community college classes, something like that, which there's nothing wrong with that, but that wasn't what I wanted. That wasn't my dream goals and career. And
Yeah.
um, I thought I was going to have to work full time to help my mom and all of those pieces that would have altered my life path. And these two educators in my life showed me that I could write my own story. My story was not that I was the girl whose dad died. Um, it was not that this was going to change my life forever. Obviously, it does, but it doesn't write my future. And I
Mm-hmm.
could be the person I wanted to be. In my senior year, I really did that. So I became president of student council and I pushed myself to do challenging things. I fought for what I thought was right. R- applied to college. I got accepted into college. I chose a college. I did all sorts of things that my junior year I didn't think was possible because of these two people. So when it was time to hit that college application, I thought about the impact that these two people had on my life, and I thought about the impact that I would like to have on my communities, whatever, wherever that community is. I want to make a difference, and I saw how much they changed my life, and I thought if I could do that for one kid, I would feel successful. So I changed from elementary school to secondary education because I had two people who really showed up for me in my worst of time and have shaped me really to be who I am today. So I'm eternally grateful for them. And I have absolutely just loved being an educator, specifically in high school. Have so much respect for educators of all age groups, but I have a little special connection to the impact you can have on very impressionable teens. And that comes from my own journey.
Ugh, Caitlin, that's beautiful. I think being able to have those kind of role models at such a truly dark and confusing time where you don't know what the future is going to look like, and it's so easy to get stuck in your head of assumptions of like, well, this is how it is going to shift my reality. I think it is such a privilege to have two teachers, an advisor, an educator to step up in those ways to challenge that mindset and really kind of retrain your brain to think like, no, it's not, I have to sacrifice my goals and dreams and wants. I can do that and I can elevate them because of the support that I've had. I can show up for others because of how people have shown up for me.
Mhm.
Beautiful. Like that, it's so poetic in a way, and I really just admire anyone who is able to continue on a legacy that they were brought into. And I think that's something you've done extraordinarily well, Caitlin. I remember when we were seniors in college, you were student teaching, and like even as a student teacher, you were going above and beyond to find support for your students, to find solutions that made sense for them. And it wasn't even like just your own classroom. Like there were others in there, and you went above and beyond just as a student teacher. And I just can't wait for you to get those letters to remind you of your impact years and years and years down the line, not
Thank
just when you're teacher of the month. Do, 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 do. She's teacher of the month, everybody. You know, to have that opportunity to really give back
Yes,
from everything that you've gained, that's damn beautiful.
thank you.
And so I obviously I can see the connection with your A push, right? A push history teacher.
Yeah, there it is.
You know, a little bit, but what made you really feel that history was the area you wanted to focus in on to teach and to really
Yeah.
develop in?
Yeah, so it's funny because a lot of times people say like, "Oh, you must have been really good at history in high school." And history is my biggest challenge, I would say. Like obviously I took AP, but I was a very academically motivated student. School came pretty easy to me. I do believe there are some people who just the way school is set up because it is set up for a certain type of student in most time in a traditional school setting. Um, I just had that type of brain. I had that type of brain, and I took way too many AP classes, I will say that. But that was a hard class for me because it you had to remember a lot, and there was so much of it. It was all of U.S. history. That's hard. And I had to work really hard for it. If I truly was going with like my biggest skill set in high school, it would have been math. I would have been a math teacher. I did think about it. I don't know how math teachers do it because there was one really big thing for me that is a rule for myself. And that is that I have to be able to explain why a student needs to know this at all times.
Mm,
I can't do that with math all the time. Those upper level math courses are tough. Uh, I didn't even fully understand. I was really good at faking it at times, and um, I have a lot of respect for math teachers, but for me, I today will say to my students at the beginning of the year, I will never give you work to do or go through a lesson without being able to explain to you why it's important to you today.
mm,
And with history, I think that's very easy to do and very important in a lot of ways. So I have always found an interest in understanding why things are the way they are right now. So if we look at our country today, if we look at other countries, if we look at our relationships with different people, different groups of people, with different countries, and all sorts of aspects of social studies, there is a reason and a history behind all of that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so important to go learn about that and to have the context to actually be able to understand what's going on now. And the way history started to be taught when towards the end of our high school careers was away from let's memorize important figures and important dates. And all of that is relative, right, to who your teacher is, to what the state decides is important, which is how we end up a lot of times with very whitewashed history,
Mm-hmm.
or history that's told by the victors or certain groups of privileged people. um, there was a shift definitely when we were in high school towards more of the cause and effect, the why. Um,
Mm-hmm.
sure, this thing happened, and we can look at the white male leaders, but how did it impact the women? How did it impact people of color? How did it impact other minority groups? And that was very interesting to me to start to look at things more holistically, to think about. I remember doing assignments that were think of yourself in this role. How would your perspective on this change? And it had me think a lot deeper about a lot of things and change my perspective on a lot of different things I was seeing in the news or events, history events that I was seeing unfold in front of me. So
Mm-hmm.
now, as a history teacher, I've taken a lot of that into account. Vermont is very flexible in what I teach. It has a little bit more flexibility than I experienced in Massachusetts. They both have very big pros and some challenges with each of those. But something I've really appreciated is that I am expected to teach skills as opposed to content. Um,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, there is content that you absolutely should cover, and is really a necessity. But I'm trying to think more critical, teach more critical thinking skills, historical understanding, how to analyze different sources, how to identify and analyze bias and look at different forms of media and all sorts of different things, economic understanding, geographic understanding, all sorts of different things, very inquiry based, but I can use different content. So most recently in my ninth grade class, like we talked about the Israel-Palestine conflict because it's
Mm-hmm.
relevant to right now. And
Mm-hmm.
these students do see things on the news and they see things on TikTok and on Instagram, and they a lot of the times don't fully understand, or they scroll by it because they don't get it. And we took a lot of time to really go back in the history and look at some of the major events that led up to the situation we're in today. And
Mm-hmm.
at the end, we had a very intense, graded discussion where students talked about some of the different things leading up to this and both sides of this, all the different sides of this very intense conflict and how it impacts very many people in very many different ways. And asking them to form their own opinions in a safe and inclusive environment where it is okay if you disagree with the person next to you, but you're going to listen respectfully. We're going to have our own opinions. You're going to have an educated opinion. And I think in just being a history teacher, that is so powerful. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I have a phenomenal role where I can teach about today by educating them on what got us to today, to give them different perspectives and let them form their own. I don't let the kids know, which I constantly get asked about, like, do you get accused of indoctrinating students and all of those things that people hear often? And there are many, many teachers who do experience that. And sure, I've had different conversations with people about what we're teaching and why, but my role is not to teach kids certain opinions or certain viewpoints. My job is to teach them how to form educated opinions and viewpoints and to be respectful when they are faced with other people who are not of the same opinion or of the same mindset. And through teaching history and all the different aspects of social studies, we spend a lot of time on learning about culture and different aspects of psychology and things like that to help to make sure that I am creating good citizens, good humans, and using really history as the platform for that.
I Love that. I love the way you explained that because I think shifting it from being you have to memorize all these events, all these dates, years. That was also my least favorite thing of history. I was like, what do you
Yeah,
mean I need to memorize every war date in the world? Like,
yeah.
I took AP European. Shout out Mr. Welsh.
Oh,
History was always my favorite because I think I always enjoyed being able to understand why things are the way they are.
yeah,
I was absolutely that girl in a history class of like, women couldn't own land.
yeah.
Why not? Why
Right,
the hell not?
right.
And, learning those things really challenged my perspective of the world, as I
Mhm.
think it does for anybody. But I think to shift it, to have it be how can you understand it now in the context of the modern age, but then also what can you do going forward? How can you educate yourself on the opportunities ahead for activism like this or for understanding things like this and working towards an allyship for other communities that you don't identify with? Huge, huge, huge
Yeah,
skill.
because I was just gonna say I work in a community that's pretty rural,
Yeah.
primarily white. There is a big part of Vermont that is it Vermont prides itself on the number of generations your family has been in Vermont. It's very rich in um culture and tradition
Mm,
in the Vermont history aspect, and there's a lot of really beautiful things, but sometimes unfortunately it does result in students who aren't as familiar with other parts of the world, or
yeah.
they are a little bit they have a little bit of tunnel vision to what they experience, and we all have that as children. We all,
Hmm.
our hometown is a perfect representation of the world, and most often it's not. It's not
Right.
a perfect representation. And for many of my students, it's starting to broaden that. And
Mm,
one thing I do to kind of show them that they do have some ideas around some of these things even before they come in is we start many of our units with an open discussion of what do you already know. And it's okay if you're not confident that it's correct, but I want to hear what you think you
mm,
know. Because I heard a lot of things about the Israel and Palestine conflict that are things that they saw on social media or they heard their parents say, and they don't get it, but it's what they're hearing, and that does influence students. And then by the end, you start to see them start to form their own opinions. And some of them are like heavily leaning into, nope, I do agree with my parents. And some of them are starting to question things and how do we battle some of these things? Because for many students, sometimes they'll come up to you and say, well, how do I have a conversation with my parents? And it said, well, you have lots of resources, like use your resources and help them to also be educated. And if they're educated and they still have an opinion, it's different. They're still forming that educated opinion. So
mm.
having that opportunity to kind of open their eyes is just so important and not something they're always familiar with, which is a cool opportunity for sure.
And again, all the props to you for how you do it. I think opening up that discussion of like, what do we know now? And then having like a follow-up of what did we learn? How are we feeling with all of the information? Because I think we've, as a society, gotten into a bit of a weird area where it's like it's black, it's either right or wrong, black and white.
Yes.
And that's not the case. There's so much nuance and caveats and all these little things that play into the overall picture that doesn't make it black and white.
Right.
So you can agree with one aspect of it, but maybe you don't agree with the other. And that's
Mhm.
also still a valid opinion. And I think being able to challenge kids to start having those conversations because we don't have good examples, I think, right now in larger leadership roles politically, and worldwide of having those conversations where it's a conversation to understand one another instead of, I'm right, you're wrong. I'm going to
Mhm.
make you now feel XYZ, so you shut up.
Right.
That's what we're saying.
Yes.
And
And
so,
what I'm experiencing, like I will be honest, recently it has been very hard to bring up topics that do feel very black and white at times, and
mm,
things that are being made to be very black and white. And I actually took a course about how to engage students in more civics-based activities and engage them more in their communities and have these tough conversations. And there was a lot of rhetoric in what I was reading about how important it is to have those conversations when they feel tough, especially when we are not seeing that in our community and in our leaders.
mm,
To me, that it showed me a responsibility that I have or an opportunity I have as their educator to be that adult and to be that
Yeah.
person for them. And to point out, like, you know what? You're right. This was said by this politician or this was said by this world leader. And it's unfortunate that that's the reaction, but you don't have to have that reaction. And you can dive deeper and you can question and you have the right and you should do that,
Hmm.
which has been neat
Yeah.
and hard.
It's extremely hard. People, especially young people, get stuck in their ways, and I think you brought up a great point of like that nature versus nurture. If they've had that perspective bestowed upon them for all this time, they're
Yeah.
not coming to your classroom and being challenged. Not everybody likes that. More
No.
people hate it than like it.
Yeah.
And so really realizing that kind of delicate area to walk and like that very delicate line of like, I'm not changing your, like you said, I'm not indoctrinating anybody to think any type of way. It's about having education in really challenging conversations to be informed in all
Hmm.
of the capacities that we're talking about here. And it's not just, I heard this, so I believe it, so now I'm gonna regurgitate it. It's, I heard this, here's what the research I found, I challenged myself with it, so now this is my own opinion.
Right.
And being able to walk away with that.
And by creating like a classroom environment where that becomes normal, like
Mm,
towards the end of the year, I think this is so funny because it's a double-edged sword. We can't get through anything at the end of the year because they ask so many questions and they come in
mhm,
and they say, I saw this on the news. What is this about? Tell me more. And now all of a sudden they are learning to ask those questions and they are challenging. Well, what's the other side saying? What about this? Like, I can't
mhm,
get through anything by the end of the year because they're asking so many questions. And it's such a beautiful thing to see where at the beginning of the
mm,
year, they thought, like, I can't ask a question. I can't challenge you. I can't, because I have students who will fact check me and they will ask me, like, how do you know that? Where did you get that information? And that's how I know I did my job.
yeah.
And is when they actually start to dive a little deeper on their own. And it's such a wonderful thing to not be able to get through anything.
Yeah, that is a very full circle kind of moment where you are now being challenged by the students instead of you challenging them. And I think that is, again, I think a big theme of you and your impact as an educator is having these full circle moments where you come back to your why. Why did you teach it that way? So they can start questioning. So they can
Yeah.
start really pushing on their own understanding and figuring out what that looks like and what that means. Ugh,
Right.
Caitlin, I'm eating it up. I want to understand now a little bit more. Teachers need a lot of resilience. We kind of hinted in the beginning, pay is not there, resources are barely there. I think a lot of parents are getting very, it's my way or the highway, and not really fully giving the graces to the educators to kind of do their job, dare I say. And so, as we know, there are those downfalls within our education system, and especially now where we have an administration that's not supportive of
Mhm.
funding and really showing up to make sure our educators are taken care of. How are you taking care of yourself as a teacher?
Yeah, so everyone says like self-care, 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 and
Mm,
you have to actually believe that and find what that is for you. So, self-care for me is therapy in one way. And I think everyone in the world should have a therapist, even if you feel like you're in a great spot. I think it's so important to process. I have conversations with my therapist that I didn't expect to have. I have things, there are days I go in with a list of this is what we need to talk about because I'm feeling stuck in the mud and this is what I
mm,
need to do to move forward. So I think that's so, so important. That is something that is so important to me. I'm very fortunate that I have access to that and I am able to attend therapy regularly. I also think for me, a big thing is healthy outlets. Exercise is such a big thing for me. I do live in Vermont, so it's very cold and it snowed again yesterday and it's icy. So I do enjoy getting outside as much as I can and exercising. In the winter, that looks like skiing for me. In the summer, I go on a 3 mile walk at least every day, as long as weather allows me to, even in the rain if possible. But moving my body in some way has always been a great outlet for me. And really, a big thing though, I think for teachers is really figuring out how to set those boundaries. And that's not something
mm,
day.
Yeah.
It is a job that you are responsible for many hours of most days of the week for a large group of students. So I have over 100 students this year. So to think that every day I am thinking about the well-being of 100 students, and it's not just are they understanding history? Did they come in getting a good night's sleep? Is this student healthy after being sick for a week? Are they able to access their education? Are they eating? How are they coping with the challenges in their life? All of those factors that, no, it's not necessarily written in the job description, but become a part of your role as a teacher. It's very important to set those boundaries. And that was something I had to learn the hard way. My first couple years of teaching, I carried a lot of that home with me. Um,
Mm,
Also, in your first years of teaching, you're figuring it out. So I was doing a lot of work at home. I was grading at home. I was lesson planning, things that sometimes you have to do. But I was not often turning off my teacher brain. I was constantly thinking of students.
mm,
I was emailing back and forth with students late into the night or on weekends if they needed something. And a thing that I think has really saved some of my mental well-being with being a teacher and balancing that is I very much shut off school when I'm home. When I'm home, I want to be doing things that fill my cup so that when I'm in that building, I can be the best person I can be for my students. Because when
mm,
I was taking it home with me and I was never turning it off, I was completely emptying my cup and then running on empty. And then I wasn't able to be the person I wanted to be for them at school.
yeah.
So I think there's a lot of guilt around being saying you're going to step back and saying to students, no, I'm not grading your assignment over the weekend. Um, yes, I did see your email. No, I didn't answer it. There's, I think, a lot of guilt that gets put on teachers, whether self-inflicted or pushed onto you by other people to always have that hat on, and you don't have to. It's actually probably better for you to put that hat away for a little bit.
Hmm.
So that's something I definitely have had to learn and has been very beneficial to me. But I also think it's important to touch upon like it's not just teachers and educators who are lacking those resources because we are dealing with lots and lots of children who are human beings. So it's all of the lack of resources that we're experiencing. I think some of my biggest challenges right now have actually nothing to do with the fact that I have to buy my own pencils. Yes, I don't love that I buy a lot of pencils for my classroom, but you know what? There is some funding for me to do to get that from school. We have what we need, and anything extra, like if I choose to do that, that's my choice. Um, I don't often feel some of those pressures. Yes, I wish it was better, but a lot of the pressures I feel is when things like the foster care system is lacking a lot of resources, and that directly impacts children's housing, children's safety, children's well-being. And as an educator, I have many other things that I am up against with that child before they're feeling like they are ready to learn about this historical event. Because when their reality, it has so many challenges, they don't care. And you know what? At times when you don't have your basic needs met, school doesn't matter to you. What you're learning in class is not important when you don't know where you're going home to, or
Mm,
your brother is safe, or anything like that. So I think some of the bigger challenges that I'm seeing is the lack of resources in other areas that directly impact the children in that building.
mm,
And I think for me, the way I've coped with that is to just feel like I am doing absolutely everything in my power to support that student when they're in the building. I'm not taking them home. I can't fix their home life. I can't bring in meals for every student. Those things are not in my abilities, in my skill set, in my training. Um, I have received trainings that I don't have to. I have received youth mental health first aid training so that if a student does express suicidal ideation, um, I know some of those next steps. I know how to have those conversations. Those are choices that I made to make sure that
mm,
I felt like I was doing everything in my wheelhouse. I'm not going and getting a social work degree. I'm not going and doing all these extra things. I'm reaching out to those people in these children's lives who do have those trainings and providing them with support. I don't listen to a kid and say, sorry, that's too bad, and then move on. I will make sure
right.
to initiate those next steps, to bring them to that support. But I leave my school every day feeling like I did what I could, and that's what I have to live with.
Mm,
I can't be everything for everyone, and that's not something that comes easy at times. There are days that I would go home and I'm pissed and I'm upset and I cry on the way home because of something a kid told me. But if I feel like I did everything that I could, that's a successful day. And that threshold is different for people. I know I do things that I don't have to do, but it makes me feel like this is one thing that's in my control that I can do. Um,
mm.
so that's how something that gets me through at times.
I love that. And I think shaping your mindset to be, I can be the initiator. I can be the start of the resources that they need. I can be that initial conversation. That is so important because I think knowing you, you very much give and give and give without expectations, questions, comments, concerns. You would give until your arms fell off. And I think that's a beautiful aspect, but I think it's even more beautiful that you're finding these boundaries so you can continue to refill your cup and
Mm,
also show up in the most productive way possible for the kids. And I think that's a huge lesson that you shared, that you learned through all of that of like when you are drained, you aren't showing up your best. And then that just kind of follows you into I can't show up my best for my students, so then let's go down this dark rabbit hole that we don't
right.
need to go down. And I think to be able to give yourself that kind of grace and give yourself permission to
Mm,
close the like once that classroom door is closed, we're done. Like we did all that we could for the day. We're going to take that step to recharge ourselves so then the next day we can come back and do it again.
right.
And I think to find energy in that is difficult for some people, but you do it with ease. You've always been able to just open up your own understanding of the world. And I think, like you mentioned, you're in a very different community than the one that you grew up in. Having a bit more of a rural, my family's been in Vermont since Vermont was a state. Like, you know,
Yes, like quite literally, yes.
yeah, and nothing but love and respect there, but how do you challenge those very set in perspectives? And I think it's it just fills my heart to hear all the ways that you are finding that and really being able to update your perspective so you can show up consistently for others. And I think that's one of the hardest things to do. It's very easy to be not stuck in your ways, but just this is what I'm familiar with. This is what I understand, how I know it. If it doesn't work for you, it's too bad, so sad. You've said no, that's not at all how it's going to be, and really challenging yourself with those additional courses and being able to take that educational step on like what do I have in reality, what do I have control over?
Mhm.
Because like you said, if we could, every child should have a free lunch at bare minimum. Like there should never be, I'll never forget if I missed a lunch payment and being sent to like the back of the line of like you can get a chocolate milk, I guess. And it's
After
like,
that, yeah.
girl,
I
be
am fortunate.
real.
My district, and I don't quote me, but it's if it's not every school in Vermont, it's most do give every student a free lunch and actually free breakfast.
And
Um,
that's why Bernie's from there.
that's right.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yes, but because I was
Yeah.
actually I was a free reduced lunch kid, so for a large portion of I remember my lunch for a long time was 10 cents. And I didn't know why for a long time. And then
Mm,
it was after my dad passed, it was completely free. And that was
yeah.
such a hard thing for me. And I never wanted people to know. And now it's nice that
Mm.
even those students don't have that barrier in my school. It's just free for everybody. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of them who still just don't choose to get it because they don't want school lunch. But there are two meals every day for students in my district that they are guaranteed to have access to, which is incredible.
I
So.
want to wrap up. I think we've kind of revisited this theme a lot of really recognizing your impact and understanding the longevity of your time as a teacher and how you are making the most of it for yourself, but then also for the students. And so I'm curious if you have a story you would want to share about a time that you felt full circle with a student or a group of students and really saw the kind of reaping of all the hard work that you put in to be impactful with them.
Yeah, so I brought this box. So this is my teacher box, and inside is a whole bunch of letters and cards and things that I've kept from students. And I don't keep everyone, because that's hard, but I keep the ones that remind me of why I do my job.
Mm.
And so on the hard days or in the middle of the summer when I'm trying to get myself psyched to go back, I read these things and it reminds me of why I do show up every day. And what I've noticed, because I went through it this morning too, is the ones that mean the most to me are the ones where it's talking about a student who is thanking me for making them a better person. It's not about,
Mm.
I learned a lot
Mm.
from you. Those are great things to hear, but it's how did I make a difference in this kid's life as a person? So
Yeah.
I have a picture of this letter because it actually sits. I when I get them throughout the year, I put them on the wall next to my desk. Those are like really right in my face so that the days that I'm like, oh, if I make it to 3 o'clock, it's gonna be a miracle. I can turn my head and say, nope, this day is going to end. It's going to be okay. And tomorrow I could absolutely change the kid's life. So this letter is next to my desk, and I got it in the mail at school, which never really happens. And I was very confused when I got a letter that was very clearly handwritten by a child, um, in the school mail. And it was from a student that I had last year, 2 years ago. I believe it was last year, and he was a ninth grade student, and he came into school and said, I hate school, I hate being here, I'm really bad at learning, I'm bad at reading, I'm bad at writing, I'm bad at school, I'm not going to do well. Just had this story written in his head already of how unsuccessful he was going to be. um,
Mm.
he came in with a history of being truant and not being at school very often. um, so coming in kind of with this story of not a kid who wants to be here, will not be here often, doesn't find a lot of success in school. And he had learning challenges and definitely things that were also barriers. But in my class really blossomed, and he often tried to answer questions and he constantly asked for feedback, and he was a great kid. And I credit a lot of his success to his own hard work.
Mm.
Really think about my own role in that. But I received this letter. I'm going to read parts of it, randomly in the mail. So it said, Dear Miss Medeiros, um, I would like to thank you for being supportive in my first year at this school. While I was there, you really helped me enjoy social studies and you always gave me the tools I needed to be a better student. When I was your student, you pulled students into the hall for discussions on missing work to ask how you could help. You were always understanding with bad days and saw us as a person and a student. That is why I believed I had the ability to get things done even on the hard days. You made me feel capable of doing whatever I set my mind to. In class, you also had discussions and asked questions. This contributed me getting to know other people's opinions and taking in new information. This made me feel connected. You were always very nice and helped us when we got behind. Before having you as a teacher, I would just give up. As a result of you being so nice, you helped me feel comfortable asking for help and asking questions. I also know you always gave us lots of feedback. You have changed my life in a good way, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, I'm gonna cry.
Yes, I did
Mm.
cry quite a lot when I
Oh
got
yeah,
that. Um,
understandable.
and that was like randomly on a random weekday. I got that in school mail. He had transferred schools. He moved. So he's at a different local high school. And I just randomly got that letter in the mail one day. It was out of the blue. He didn't have to do that. It wasn't
Mm.
for any reason. It was, and this is a student who a year prior, if I had asked him to write that much for anything, even for a grade, he would have freaked out. And
Yeah.
now he was taking his own time to write that letter to just tell me that I helped him. And the part that always stands out to me is that he said that before having me as a teacher, you should just give up.
Mm.
For me to be able to inspire a student to not give up and to push through those hard days, that means more to me than anything. And I've noticed that a lot of the letters that I keep say similar things, that you helped me to be a better person and you always listened to me when I was having a bad day and I wanted to go to your class and things like that. So for me, those are the moments that mean the most to me. Sure, when a
Mm.
kid gets a good grade, awesome. when a kid has an aha moment in class and you can see their understanding click, those moments are what fills the cup. What reminds me to come back on those hard days are
Mm,
those letters or those little moments that teenagers who have the reputation of not caring about anything and
yeah.
they're all troublemakers and all that, when they take the moment to thank someone in their life for helping to shape them to be better people, that's it for me. I don't care how much you pay me. That's enough for me. I didn't get in this job to get a big paycheck or to change kids' minds about everything. I got into it because I can have an impact on even a handful of kids' lives. And what I'm realizing the longer I am a teacher is that you have way more of an impact than you even realize. Even if you don't know it right then, there's an analogy of as a teacher, you plant seeds and you might not see the
Mm.
flower grow, but it does and it will. And it's really neat that that's kind of that's what I do every day. And that's really impactful. And I appreciate that part of my job more than anything.
Ah, you are just such a remarkable educator and such a remarkable person. And I think to create a space where a child who doesn't know how to ask for help can start asking, like asking for help, even as an adult, is like the hardest thing in the whole wide world to do because nobody wants to admit that they need it.
Mhm.
Nobody wants to be the person that's like, oh, they need a burden, dare I
Yeah.
say, that feeling, that will always threaten that. And I think for you to create a space and a true sense of belonging in your classroom where it's like you'll be missed when you're not here and you'll be celebrated when you are here. I think
Mhm.
you facilitate that feeling very well, and it's through how you maintain respectful conversations when challenging things come up. It's through how you just touch base if a kid is seeming off, if it's like I know this was going on in the background, and I think the perspective you have comes from all that you have learned and all of the support you received, and really showing how I want to truly like making it a full circle. That's how I want to give back. That's how I want to make people feel. And to know that you have a box full of notes and letters, and girl, you're gonna need a whole chest very soon,
Uh,
to keep all of those. But I think having those moments where you can like everything's going real fast, just put yourself in a slow down lane, read those notes, feel reinvigorated by just knowing like what I'm doing is right and just, and what I'm doing is only going to help us move forward as a community. Um, and I think seeing a student as a person and them really emphasizing that you made them feel that way, that's, that's remarkable, remarkable and iconic.
Thank you.
No, no, thank you. And all the fellow educators across the nation, across the globe, they are the ones who sometimes are the most consistent person in a kid's life and the sole resource that they know will always be there. They know it's like you have your office hours, but for like the children of like, I know Monday through Friday,
Yeah.
Mrs. Kerman will be in class and, I can go to her and have that kind of reliability that they may not have in other areas. I think to put yourself in that position and then continuously show up and show out is remarkable. And Caitlin, this has been a true gift to just revisit all of the your why. And really, I'm so very privileged and honored to be able to revisit after knowing you for so long and really seeing you come into your very own kind of teacher and find how you can be the most impactful and do that, but then also elevate it in your consistency in doing that and feeling and having these students feel so comfy cozy in your classroom to not only challenge you when it comes to lessons, but also maybe challenge you when it comes to resources, asking for help and like really finding their way, being a light for to help them find their way as young people. Ooh, 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 girl. Ooh, 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 you're doing the damn thing. Oh my gosh. But the world is better because of educators like you, and I
Thank
am
you.
extremely thankful for your time here to chit chat.
Of
about
course.
being an
I
educator,
just,
being that
I'm
girl.
so proud of you, and I'm so glad you're doing this. As soon as I heard you were having a podcast or you could speak with incredible people and share your own thoughts, I think I just don't understand why we didn't start this 5 years ago. Because
Who's to say?
people need to hear it.
Yes, and I think having stories like this where it's just truly heartwarming, like constantly heartwarming, inspiring, and beautiful. Yeah, that's what I'm about. And you have always been just a steady light in my life, and it's just so beautiful to see how that has expanded to so many kids' lives. I know you're inspiring other teachers for how you show up. I know that. I don't need to ask. I got it. I know it. I'm good. And just truly how you show up as a friend to everybody and anybody that you care for has always been remarkable. And I see you taking that into your teaching and taking that into your classroom and just being a friend that's a mad responsible friend for these kids to really learn from. And I think that's what you do very, very good, my friend. Well, it's been fun. It's been real. It's been real fun. But you got to get back to enjoying your Sunday before you get back into that education system. And I just want to thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Anytime. We'll catch up very, very soon.
Yes,
I
more
love
time.
ya. I'll
Love you.
talk to ya.
Yes, you will.
I hope you enjoyed that episode as much as I did. And I want to thank Mrs. Kurmin for taking the time yet again to join me for an hour on a Sunday to talk about her experience. I really hope we all walk away reminded with the impact of our educators and how fantastic they truly are for our children, for our community, and for the betterment of the world. Yeah, I said that. But I really am thankful for you all for joining for this month. I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care, be well. Till next time. Bye.